The framers of the Constitution really feared the development of political parties, and they aren't a real prerequisite for any type of representative democracy. In other words, you don't have to have them. The Constitution certainly doesn't talk about them or require them in any way. And really, parties were considered to be a threat to good government and public order. Remember Madison's fear of factions. We could consider a faction to be the same as a political party, right? A group of people with a similar interest. However, we encounter this paradox. The Constitution didn't create parties, and the people who wrote the Constitution were maybe afraid of parties. Yet at the same time, the Constitution created incentives for forming parties and protected their activities. So, this competition in Congress to get things done and the lack of real internal structures that help necessitated the creation of structures within Congress in order to get laws passed. Well, we created committees, but parties were an essential structure in order to reduce collective action problems, groups of like minded individuals, so that we could sort of organize how people were going to vote every time. And these alliances had to be long lasting, right? They couldn't just switch up all the time. They were durable, they were stable. And that also meant that if you joined Congress, you're elected and a new member, Congress members who are already there know how to work with you because they know what party you are a member of. They know if you're going to be part of their coalition or the opposing coalition. So parties were pretty much essential for coordinating action within Congress. And of course, the First Amendment and its protection of things like speech and assembly basically guaranteed that parties would exist and be protected. So it's kind of this weird paradox. They didn't want them, and yet they laid the groundwork for creating them. Now, ultimately, it makes sense that they did form. There are several different political scientists who've weighed in on why we have political parties. The first three, Hofstadter, Schatzsnyder, and Aldrich, are all working in the American context. And they point out that this can facilitate governance and bridge the separation of powers. So facilitating governance, right, it makes things easier to get done, right, to pass laws because we have these stable coalitions, but also bridges the separation of power between Congress and the president, right? Because if Congress knows what party the president is a member of, and the president says, vote yes on this bill, people in the same party are going to be like, yes, I should vote yes on that bill. And people in the opposing party are going to be like, I should vote no on that bill, right? And importantly, if the president during, say, campaign or State of the Union promises that they will do something, remember, they can't propose bills in Congress themselves. They have to wait for a Congress member to do it. So that can present a cue for the Congress, for their party within Congress to propose these bills. So it can bridge that separation of powers, make it easier for a president to, in essence, propose a bill, even though he won't be doing. Schatzsnyder also points out that they serve as intermediaries between government and the voters, right? So you as a voter are rationally ignorant. You don't want to or need to know everything about everyone who's running. So if you know their party, you know something about them. That helps serve as an intermediary. That helps you know shorthand who to vote for. It also helps you know if the government is doing well, the country is doing well, you're going to vote for the party in power in the government. The country isn't doing well, you're going to vote for the opposition party, right? That's retrospective voting. That's based on parties. So parties can really help us with that. They also serve as an opposition to majority power. During midterm elections, that's when Congress is up for reelection, but not the president. We often see that the president's party loses seats. It's part of the surge and decline theory that we're going to talk about in a couple lessons. And the president's party loses often because the public says, wait a second, we've given you an awful lot of power. We'd like to take a little bit of that away. Make sure you have a clear opposition so that anything that you do, we make sure is kept in check by the opposition party. So it can help give a voice to the opposition, whoever's in power, right? That can help prevent tyranny. Aldrich points out that, as I've already said, this can help politicians manage collective action, the government, and in the electorate. Party labels are really helpful for reducing information and transaction costs. Burke, and you might recall him because he's the one who talked about our delegate and trustee models of representation when we talked about Congress. Burke says they helped organize opinions and opposition. So just like with Schatzsnyder, he says it can help organize opposition, but it can also just organize opinions. And one thing that this has really helped with is constraining debate, right? Not every issue is going to be up for debate all the time. It couldn't possibly be, right? There are too many things out there that people care about. So by having parties that have sort of defined positions on a couple issues, that constrains the debate to those issues. And maybe lets the other issues just get resolved more easily because they aren't a conflict. It can also promote the peaceful resolution of issues because we're just going to vote for someone rather than, have an armed revolution like the colonists did against the crown. And this can just overall really help facilitate governance and democracy. So even though the framers were afraid of parties, there were a lot of incentives for parties to form within the government that they created and ultimately within the electorate as well.